My name's Rob Henshaw. I'm the Managing Director of Quest. A lot of you may know the company as Quest 88, but we've rebranded recently as Quest. I've been working for the business, which is a family business, for 31 years. I've done most of the jobs within the company during that time. My father started the business 33 years ago, brought in a product called the K-Walker, which, there's no two ways about it, revolutionised the way that children learn to walk and gait train in the UK. My father, Jeremy, is a senior orthotist and was involved, I'd say back in the 80s, with early intervention equipment for disabled children and rehabilitation equipment. Quest has quite an extensive range of products, and there is this kind of overlap between products which they're there to derive a clinical benefit, such as our standing frames and some of our walking frames. They're about enabling children to have more freedom, and maybe later on in life to have more freedom. Standing frames, for example, apart from the benefits of standing therapy, are kind of precursors or kind of dovetail with gait training, learning to walk. So we have those products, and then we have our therapy tricycles, which we've manufactured now in the UK for over 30 years. They're about fun, they're about inclusion, but they're also about good symmetrical exercise, and quite often they are, and have been for a long time, by the paediatric physiotherapy community as a product which can help maintain a good posture whilst keeping things moving, improving strength and conditioning, pre-operation, post-operation. Then we have the products then going into that recreation sports category. So then cycling is not just about therapy, it's about getting somewhere, it's about doing things as a family, it's about life goals, for older children, teenagers, it's about life goals, and that sense of independence. And the products get quite exciting, and more as years go on, they become, in their design, they become less, difficult to choose the word, but institutional looking. It's very hard to find any kind of real difference between the adaptive, apart from the three wheels, but the adaptive cycle and a mainstream cycle in terms of the desirability of the product, the sense of ownership of this is my bike, it's cool. I think having cool, state-of-the-art, accessible, adaptable bikes, for example, or walking frames or whatever, it starts a conversation. It starts a conversation between a child and its able-bodied peers. And quite often we see it just in the park here is, that child, hear two or three children walking in the park say, wow, that's cool. It's just chipping away at those barriers and any sense of segregation between disabled children and able-bodied children. That's really exciting. So one of my roles at Quest is to investigate near misses and adverse incidents concerning the products that we manufacture as they're medical devices. They're Class 1 medical devices. And with any medical device, we have to put an intended use down on paper somewhere and in the user manual. That's we're declaring the equipment to be safe in X, Y, and Z environments and circumstances. It's always a challenge because the K-Walker, for example, which from its conception was a gait training device and something to be used in a gym, soon became popular as a community walker, and now is widely used by children everywhere as a daily living aid. And over the last 10 years in particular, I've seen children push the envelope in terms of how and where they use them. I remember a copy of the Sunday Telegraph or something like that had a picture of a child, Somerset House in London, on the ice with their K-Walker. Not in their intended use, I hasten to say, but at the same time raises a smile. And I've seen greater take-up of football in all its forms with children using the K-Walker. And it led me to think some years back, in what way could we actually improve that situation for the child to make maybe the product more resilient to knocks, but also make playing football easier. And I wasn't the only person that was observing this. People were observing this in the disability sports world, and we happened to get our heads together and share our experiences. And this gave birth to the Gameframe. The Gameframe is not a medical device, although we, in terms of our vigilance, in terms of our safeguarding, we handle it just in the same way as a medical device. But it's not a medical device in that it's not used every day. It's used in fairly controlled environment. We worked with a couple of universities actually, and with those universities we arrived at some things that we'd like to change about it. And one of the things was making access to the ball a lot easier, kicking the ball a lot easier, but also with children playing in a frame, we wanted to avoid, and this is a football parlance, dead ball situations. So we wanted to avoid throw-ins, we wanted to avoid collisions wherever we could. So we wanted a frame that if the ball was missed by a child, for example, the ball would be able to roll through the frame, so the ball isn't trapped in the frame. And we started working with partners like Cerebral Palsy Sport, the International Federation for CP Football, together with universities, together with some football clubs, not just with the design of the frame, but then other things that design the frame with things like what the game rules that are going to be. So deciding on the type of football, for example, was important. Didn't want a ball that bounced particularly high, and we needed to get the size of the football right. All that work has gone into creating a frame which is now used for frame football, which is a growing sport internationally, has its rules ratified, takes into consideration, children with CP, they can tire easily, possibly prone to sort of fractures. So things like playing on uneven grass it's not really an environment where you can play it. Hence the game is played in a gym. So all of these inputs from players, clubs, disability sports organisations all kind of led into the design of the frame. And it's a design that's evolving, and it's also a design which we have now a dialogue in the volleyball arena and in the rugby arena in terms of exploring how we can adapt a game frame to be optimised for playing those other sports, not just football. We're seeing children, and parents are seeing their children get out of breath probably for the first time, perspiring a lot more, getting ruddy red cheeks, and just being able to enjoy the sports that they've maybe felt a little bit on the sideline with, and now they're kind of fully active and involved with. So the growth of the sport is not just dependent on having equipment that can be used and that is optimised for whatever the sport is. The infrastructure has to be there, and it's early days, it's growing. A lot of the clubs are parent-powered. Some of the opportunities are coming through UK Athletics, some of them are coming through the FA, but there's still a long way to go. So it's difficult to signpost families, but what I want to say is it's coming, and find out more and keep informed and watch this space really. So the CP Sport rental scheme for running frames and game frames originated in lockdown back in 2020, and it was a way of enabling people to exercise at home and try new things in a situation where they can't access clubs or taster sessions for adaptive inclusive sport. So the premise is that for a nominal fee you can hire a running frame or a game frame, together with some input from CP Sport on some routines and some exercises, and then Quest will deliver the product to the home, do an assessment, and then families, individuals can rent equipment for a 3-month period, and then a possible renewal for a further 3 months after the first 3 months has expired. And it's proven really successful, and a recent addition to the scheme is the introduction of CP Sports and the FA's skill cards for frame football. And so now if you hire a game frame, you get a ball for 3 months, you get a pump for the ball, you can obviously get the game frame, and you have a number of skill cards showing different exercises, different routines to enhance your football skills and get physiotherapy at the same time. You can find out more about the skill cards on CP Sports website, and we'll put a link through on the end of this video. Also, you can contact us at Quest to find out more. There's a lot of constraints with a product specialist visiting a home. And we've got to really be good at distilling what we do into an hour or a couple of hours. Sometimes that may look like turning up at a home. Child is just back from school. So for example, it's 3:30. We arrive, we unload. Child's quite often tired. There's an agenda in play where the tea is going to go on at some point, and to do our best work and convey our knowledge, our experience, to give the right levels of encouragement, it really is a task to kind of distill that into that short space of time. So when we started our hubs, which is another way of saying it, venues for people to come to and try our products, we found that it was a much more dignified affair for everybody involved, really. Quite often the family as a whole can attend rather than just a couple members of the family. We try and make it a pleasurable shopping experience. We have time to do our best work. We don't feel that we're rushed, and the family doesn't feel that they're rushed. We try and pick venues for our hubs whereby there's good outdoor space to use the products, especially things like running frames and tricycles and bikes. A lot of people will make a weekend of it or an overnight trip, and we have this other benefit of trying things early on, being able to say to somebody, go next door for a coffee on us while we do some adjustments or fine tune the product. It just gives us the space to do that, and then they can come back in, and then we're away again. And it's just a much more satisfactory experience for everybody. We want to quite often share stories. A lot of what we do is about sharing stories with families, about other families. Without being personal about other families and divulging that data, we can have stories about things that have worked, things that haven't worked in other cases. The other great thing about having a venue such as this, which is our Shrewsbury hub, is we can have so much more equipment at hand. It just gives us more things to try, and it also gives us a literal toolbox, because we have a big one in the shop here, but also a whole raft of accessories which are easy to reach, easy to get to, and easy to fit. It doesn't replace the need to go out to families. We totally get that, but it's nice to be able to offer both scenarios to a parent. And even with our Shrewsbury store, we're finding that families are travelling, in some cases they're travelling 5 or 6 hours. Invariably they will stop in the local townhouse accommodation that we have over the road in Shrewsbury. I think having a lot of different equipment here, that's our expertise. Our expertise is equipment, and finding equipment that is suitable. We have that knowledge. It can't always be conveyed in a catalogue. It can't always be conveyed on a website. Can't always be conveyed in a video. You need to try. A lot of what the hubs are about, and what we're about, is especially with the recreational stroke sport equipment, is playing. It's experimentation. Children and the young adults we deal with are so individual. It needs that play. It needs that experimentation. I think when we haven't got that pressure cooker environment of trying to do it all in a couple of hours at somebody's house, we can explore different pieces of equipment with families. Quite often families will still come with some preconceptions of what it is they're looking for, but I think that with the variety that we have here and the capability that we have at our hubs, we can really open their eyes and find a product that's just absolutely the best that they can get. So frame running is a big part of what Quest does. Even though we've been doing it now for 16 years, it's relatively new. What the equipment basically does is enable people to run who wouldn't necessarily otherwise be able to, in the way that it helps you distribute your weight through your chest, through your hands, through the saddle, and through your feet. It basically frees things up for the legs to get moving, and then people to experience a sense of speed coming from their own effort. And a running frame it has very little rolling resistance. So you get this kind of quick reward for your effort, and that in itself is encouraging to children to do more and to do more. It's also interesting, as a lot of children that we deal with, where everybody's been mindful about them taking care, slowing down, don't bump into this, don't bump into that with a walker, for example. Put them on a race runner in a safe, controlled environment on an athletics track, and to give them permission to go, it's kind of big. It's a huge thing, and it's It's fantastic to watch. We wanted to kind of put more resources behind frame running, and we've done that through taking on, as a product advisor, a young lady called Kirby, and she is a user of Quest equipment. She's a user of a running frame, and that just gives her a huge amount of authority and empathy with anybody looking at our products, in terms of she can talk with more knowledge than we can as manufacturer, designer, about what it's like to live with the equipment, how comfortable is the equipment, and she's a huge asset to the company.
I was introduced to frame running by Gabriella Todd at Cardiff. The first time I did it, I was absolutely amazed by it, so I wanted a frame. It's a sort of hybrid, or a crossover, a bridge between wheelchair racing and ambulant running. So effectively, if you can't run on your feet, but you can use your legs. It's using a frame in order to propel yourself along. The frame supports your body using a chest support and a saddle, and you can push with your toes and you can get really fast. For me, it was the feeling of freedom. It wasn't necessarily my own speed that shocked me. It was the fact that the assistant that was helping me had to run to keep up with me, which is the first time that had happened in my entire life. I love taking them out and being able to get somewhere on foot under my own power, using my own energy. I'm burning energy that way. It makes me fitter. I can't do any other form of aerobic exercise, so my joints and the way that my joints work mean that I'm restricted to a walking pace, and after a very short period of time that becomes incredibly painful. Whereas because the frame is supporting my joints, it takes the weight off of my ankles and my knees and my hips. It means that I can go for much longer, and I'm using my muscles and my heart and my lungs, but I'm not damaging my joints any further. I think the independence is the thing that I try to get across to people. For many of these kids, it's the first time they've experienced independent motion that's free. They're not using a motor. They haven't got someone pushing them. They're moving with their own feet in a direction that they want to go in. And there's definitely a power in that. And actually, the exhilaration of running, I had never experienced what running felt like. I saw these people running and I was thinking, well, why are they, what do they get out of that? But for example, if I finish a race now, I get a runner's high. And I understand that for the first time in my life. Frame running is growing. It's taken a long time to develop, but it's definitely growing. It has an amazing future ahead because it has so many ways it can be applied in society. Whether it be that the frames are used instead of a bike for some people in order to develop certain muscles and get their heart rate up for the first time in their lives, or whether it be in a competitive sense. So the frames are coming into events such as triathlon and duathlon, longer distance events, things like your 10Ks, your 20Ks and your marathon, which is what I intend to do. That's what I'd love to work towards. I'd love to do the London Marathon on my frame. That would be the ultimate goal for me. There are more and more clubs popping up, and that's sort of part of my job, is to help those clubs pop up. So that's a really lovely social environment, so you can run with other runners. Events involve anything from like a 60-meter race all the way up to like a 5K and 10K races. My personal favourite thing to do on the frame is to run to the pub. We have a local cycle path. I take my frame, it's a 16K round run, and I run to the pub, have a bowl of chips and run home. Having never been able to cycle, that is an amazing thing to be able to do, because there's no way that I could walk, run or do anything else for that distance. In terms of people going out and doing their own things, the frames are really versatile. Yeah, UK Athletics run quite a lot of frame running competitions now. We have a couple of local leagues that I'm involved in, and that's like racing on an athletics track the same way that you would on foot. It's not just about the equipment, it's about the wheres and the hows. It's about the environments where they can and where they cannot be used. One thing that's been really important over the last 3-4 years is being able to signpost to events where the child can take part and the whole family can take part, siblings can take part, things like superheroes, winter wonder wheels, and in like the last 12-18 months some of those events have been virtual,
where they've been able to take part and sign up for a goal, a distance, Land's End to John O'Groats, and to do that virtually at home in whatever way they can. I think there's been a real growth in that kind of virtual event, and to be able to invite families in and not just talk about the equipment, but to actually signpost some really cool things that are happening. That's just, I think all of us at Quest, we feel that responsibility, and we feel that we're really empowering families. Not just that, you know, sometimes the discussion is about funding opportunities, because invariably the equipment is expensive. So again, to make lives easier, to signpost to charities, to signpost to organisations like CP Sport, for example. What we aim for the Quest experience to be is, one, we need to know what it is you want to do, what your goals are. Two, we want to match equipment to that, but more than that, we want to encourage you to have a little bit of an even bigger vision. We can do that because we know the equipment, and we've got lots of stories to share of other people that have maybe pushed their boundaries. So we want people to come, find solutions, be encouraged, empowered, and then we want to signpost those families, those children to bigger things going on, so that hopefully any family, any child, any young adult that comes here, we want them to go away with a greater appetite for living, a greater appetite for moving, a greater appetite for the life ahead of them.